Alright, today we're going to talk about TELPAS writing sample collection and that process. So to expedite time, I just appreciate your time watching this video, and that way we are ready for our meeting on Thursday, March the 3rd. The meeting will start promptly at your conference period, and this video will expedite the process. So I appreciate you taking that time to watch this video and these segments. Thank you. Okay. Now we're starting the first part of our TELPAS writing process, and we're going to open our TELPAS writing simple folder. Alright, when you open your collection, you should see this first page that says Texas English Language Proficiency Assessment System, TELPAS, and it has the cover sheet. So you'll have the state of Texas, your student's name, and all their pertinent information. Okay, we have that blocked out for confidentiality purposes, but you get the understanding. Okay, part 2, you're going to make sure that each sample has the first name, last name, and date on each sample. Okay, for confidentiality purposes, we have the name covered, but they should have a name and date at the top of the page. Name and date at the top of the page. Okay, so you want to check all their samples that they have name and date at the top of the page. It's a very simple process. Those that are TELPAS experts should know this process already, but you folks that are new this year, just make sure that each sample has a name and date at the top. Okay, now on to step 3 in the process. You're going to count the writing samples on the front cut and write it on the front cover sheet. There should be no more than 10 samples, and you're going to dispose of the not so good samples, samples that did not meet the criteria for the TELPAS collection sample. That means that it looks like it's been copied, or it's not on the correct paper, or it doesn't meet the correct length. Those samples need to be disposed of, but they must have at least 5 samples. Okay, like we stated before, you're going to write the amount of samples that are on the in the collection, and you're going to put it on that front page. We're just for example purposes, we're writing 10 for this student. And then you're going to sort through and find out a collection that does not, a sample that does not meet the collection standards. And we have decided that this student has one that does not meet the criteria because it is predominantly in Spanish. This is just an example. So that sample will be removed, and now that student has only 9 samples within the collection. Okay? Okay, so now we're into the meat and potatoes of the TELPAS writing sample collection process, the verifying component. You're going to answer these questions. Does the collection have a past event? Does the collection have a variety of history, science, math, or language arts samples? Does the collection have at least 5 samples, but no more than 10? Okay? Again, does the collection have a past event? Does the collection have a variety of history, science, math, and language arts samples? And does the collection have at least 5 samples, but no more than 10? So this student has a past narrative for this sample. Okay. This student also has a history sample. This student also has another history sample, has another language arts sample, and has a math sample, followed by a science sample. So they meet all the criteria for the TELPAS collection, with the variety of a past narrative or past event, a math, science, history, and ELA selection to meet their 5 criteria. This student has 10 samples in the collection. Okay, once you have verified that all samples are included and they meet the criteria, you begin signing and initialing all areas on the front cover sheet, at the back of the front cover sheet. Now, for training purposes, we're going to sign at the signature of the TELPAS rater. Okay. Alright. And we're going to go to the back page. And now we're going to sign at the rater portion. At least 5 writing samples. I fill in each blank. Every criteria that is met, I'm going to initial down, and so on and so forth. We're not going to read each example. And then at the bottom, we're now going to sign the signature of the rater once we filled in every box and every criteria has been met. Okay. So once they meet those 11 criteria, we sign the signature of the rater. Alright, it's been signature and printed. Okay, and the date. Okay, so now we're moving right along. We're going to step 6. We are going to now staple the collections, and then we are going to have those collections verified. Alright, so now that, like we said earlier, the TELPAS sample collection has been stapled. Okay, so now last step on the TELPAS writing sample, step 7. PLDs must be highlighted and marked to justify the rating. So when you're rating, you're also going back and looking at the PLDs for that student, and you're highlighting those criteria that have been met for that student. Okay, for demonstration purposes, we are looking at the TELPAS proficiency level descriptors, the PLDs, for writing, and we're highlighting the areas that the child met. So these were just for training purposes. We're just highlighting random samples. That's what you would do as an example. And notice that all may not be highlighted in the same category. There may be some samples that meet the advanced section or the advanced high, but then you go back and you look at your PLD and you notice that predominantly they have been highlighted as intermediate. So you would give a rating of intermediate because your PLD has predominantly been highlighted at the intermediate level. And the last step, for example purposes, you're going to put your writing rating, and you're going to put, for this student we said intermediate. You just put an I. Now the next thing we're going to explain is the rating roster completion process. You're going to take out, step 1, you're going to take out a blank white rating roster from training. This is an example of the white rating roster that we provide at the training. It says the TELPAS student rating roster, spring 2016. Okay. For training purposes, we are going to show you a different color paper, but you have been provided step 2. You're going to write the names of the kids from the bright green paper onto the blank white roster, rating roster paper. So as you can see, you have the yellow paper. On yours it will be the bright green paper, and you will write that student's name onto your white student rating roster. Okay, so on to step 3. You will rate your kids in listening, speaking, writing. Special note, PLDs must be highlighted and marked to justify the rating. So for training purposes, you would highlight, based on your experiences in class, that he does or she does certain has certain tendencies that fall in the category of intermediate, advanced, or advanced high, or beginning level. And you are going to highlight your PLDs just like you would for the writing sample. Alright, for training purposes, we would take our information from the PLDs. We say, just for training purposes, this student is advanced. We would then transfer that information, that highlighted information, to the white rating roster. And we label that student. And you do that for listening, speaking, writing. Alright, so we're going to step 4. TELPAS window begins on Okay, now we're on to step 4, the rating roster. TELPAS window begins on March 7th, 2016. Dates must reflect TELPAS window. So if you look at the white rating roster here for this TELPAS student roster, we have 1, 2, 3 students. We have their grade level, their ratings in listening, speaking, and writing. Reading is only through K through 1, so you do not fill that column in. You notice that the rater information is provided because of what is filled in box A and box B. Box A has a 2, you are the ESL teacher, and box B is no. And so you put 2 in that box. You now also have to sign and date, and Miss Bell will fill in the bottom portion.